Welcome back to the Think Bigger Real Estate Show. Realtor safety, is it a real thing? Is it something that you need to be concerned about? That's today's topic. I'm passionate about this topic because I happen to have a lot of real estate agents that I'm very good friends with, and I don't know that the world that we live in is getting any safer. And so today's topic, I've brought on an individual who has a very storied background in self-defense. He's a former Marine, former police officer, current private investigator, and security consultant. So I'm excited to have him on the show. Met him a few weeks ago. Very impressed with him. Actually heard his presentation on realtor self-defense that you're going to be hearing more about and actually going to be receiving an invitation to attend. But in the meantime, I want you to be safe until you have a chance to attend that. So I want to welcome on today's episode, John Jayne. John, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So let's get into this, John. Is this hype? Are people blowing out of proportion the threats that real estate agents are facing?
Absolutely not. No way. It's very real. It's very current, and it's growing.
Okay. Tell me some evidence behind, like, what makes you say that? Is it just your kind of gut feel, or is there some data to back that up?
No, there's a lot of data out there. It's sometimes hard to access, but what I found, the National Association of Realtors puts out a report every year on safety and statistics on attack and stuff like that. A big surge lately, which isn't really my forte, has been like electronic data security. There's been a lot of identity theft, which has increased over the years, forgeries, fraud, stuff like that, where my expertise is in the physical security, and those numbers are growing as well.
Let's talk about
when I first got into this topic and started going through it.
Let's talk about what some of those numbers are. I know there's 1.2 million real estate agents in the nation today. Is that number right?
Correct.
Roughly? Okay.
Yeah.
Talk to me about how many of those on a percentage basis or actual number basis have felt some sort of threat.
So of those polled, 38% reported being threatened or had felt unsafe during a showing of a home or an open house.
38%. So over 1 in 3 real estate agents at some point have felt a potential real threat.
Correct. And that could range anything from just the hair on the back of their neck standing up to an actual attack happening.
Now, I know we've heard of situations, actual homicides, terrible, tragic stories. A handful of those we've heard about. I know that as you start digging into this to see if this really was a real area of need, you uncovered, and not that I want to go into necessarily the gory details, but you found more than what you expected to find, didn't you?
Way more than I expected to find. What really got me started in this area, I was hired to do some consulting for an apartment complex. They had one of their leasing agents attacked showing an apartment. And so I kind of started delving into the statistics and some case studies. And then obviously I know a lot of realtors as well. And I started looking into this aspect of it. And the number of stories, the news stories, just if you Google attack on realtors, it's unbelievable how often this happens and how extreme the attacks are.
Jeez. Okay, so it's real. And
Absolutely.
I know, having stayed close to a forum here that's a pretty popular one, Masters in Real Estate. It's not just in other parts of the country, right? There's stuff happening right here in Portland, Oregon. I know my audience extends beyond that. I'm sure that people outside of Portland can validate that as well, is that it's happening all around us. And I would say in part because of possibly the rise of access to pornography, other things, I'm sure, other than just that, it's increasing the number of predators out there. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. One case that I became familiar with while putting this presentation together, it really unfolded as if it were some sort of a kind of a pornographic fantasy where this real estate agent was showing a home. They make it up to the master bedroom, and he attempted to kind of seduce her from the bed as if he had watched this maybe in a video of some sort. And luckily that case didn't turn out to be, this is a case that I use as an example of success where she had been trained, she had practiced and thought through tactics and mindset stuff to where she knew exactly what to do in that situation and made it out safely. But it could have been much worse.
So that we don't end on the downside, right? We're here to talk about how to prevent this. So let's give them 2 points, John. Let's give them 2 key points. Obviously, you have an entire training that they're going to be invited to in the very near future that will give them a much more kind of robust set of tools to defend themselves. But what are 2 things? If you had to choose 2 things to help people really feel safe or safer, what would they be?
Well, it's hard to pick 2 out of so many that could be helpful. But the first thing that I would tell people is if it doesn't feel right, it's probably not right. Trust your instincts. Trust that little spot in your stomach that says something isn't right here, and back out of the appointment, reschedule it. Safety first. And if it turns out that we've overshot the mark and it wasn't a big deal, you can always reschedule and everything will be fine. But that, we've been given instincts for a reason, and we just need to trust that instinct.
Very good.
Second,
so if you feel like something's not right, don't ignore it. What you're saying, don't ignore that. Okay, good.
Yeah, I think the most common thing that can happen is, oh, you know what, I'm probably just being paranoid. The moment we tell ourselves that, I mean, we're setting ourselves up to be a potential victim.
As you dug into some of these more horrific stories where stuff unfolded, was there a pretty complete consensus of those where bad stuff did happen, that they thought ahead of time, this maybe isn't such a good situation? Like where instincts were warning them and they didn't listen to them.
Well, unfortunately, the most extreme cases of what I looked into were result of somebody being deceased. So we weren't able to get their feedback. But of the ones where it might have just been an assault where it ended up in a stolen purse or maybe a sexual assault, largely there was the feeling of something doesn't feel right.
Yeah. Pay attention to those. I love it. Great tip, John. All right. What would be the second point? Let's say that that they find themselves in a bad situation. Either they didn't get the instincts or they didn't listen to them, and they find themselves in a in a precarious situation. What do they do?
Get out of the house. Inside that house, once you enter the home with the person that you're showing the house to, or the client or whatever, or the bad guy, that door closes, and it's like in the Ultimate Fighting Championship when the octagon door closes. I mean, it's a free for all in there. If something happens to go sideways, get out into the street, get out in public view, and make a scene. Yell, scream, get somebody's attention. But the longer we're in that house, the more vulnerable we are to attack.
Throw a chair through the window, right? I mean, extreme, right?
Absolutely.
Like get out of the house, cause a scene. Okay.
Cause a scene. Get out of the house is the most important thing. I mean, to follow up on that, it could be hours before the next realtor comes along or the homeowner returns. I mean, you could be captive in there for hours.
Yeah. Sobering tips, John, but necessary ones to protect the people that that we care about, people that do so much good for our communities, for our economy and our industry. Those wonderful real estate agents. We want to keep them safe. We want to keep you safe. So, John, I appreciate you sharing your expertise. If somebody can't wait for the class, or classes that we host, what would you like? Is there somebody to get in contact with you? And if so, I'll put it up here on the screen.
Yeah, go ahead and put all my contact info up on the screen. Phone number, email. If somebody needs to get a hold of me to schedule this class with about a week's notice, I can put it together and get it set up. I'll give it to anybody that wants to take it at no cost.
Awesome. John, what's your updated email?
It is john@virtusgroupinvestigations.com. It's the longest one I could find.
Virtus, VIRTUS.
Correct.
Okay. John at Virtus Investigations.
Virtus Group.
VirtusGroupInvestigations.com. That is long. I love it. Great stuff. If you have interest in having John come in and speak, please let him know. Reach out to him. If by chance you're a broker in the Portland area and you want to have John actually do a CE class at your location, please reach out to me. We'll get that set up. So, John, thanks again for your time, for all you do. Appreciate your service. We'll start with that, as well as for what you're doing to keep so many people safe at this time. Appreciate it, man, very much.
Thank you.
You bet.